What's going on, everybody? I am your host, Dragon, and watch as I breathe my fire into your soul with the very first episode of a brand new series that I am going to be calling Hip-Hop Hoopla. That's probably not going to be in the right direction, so I might have to do some screen flipping or whatever, but yes, this series is going to be called Hip-Hop Hoopla. You know, like the little character from SpongeBob. Hoopla! So basically, if you're one of those people that only really likes my gaming videos and doesn't really watch my music, then you're probably not really going to like this, but if you're one of the people that both watches my gaming commentaries and you listen to my music, then you're probably very, very much going to like this series. What this series is going to be, it's basically just going to be me talking about hip-hop, talking about different aspects of it, maybe certain things I think should change, or maybe just certain things that I think more people should do, or stuff about CDs or projects that I like. I don't know, maybe in the future we'll do some reviews. I don't know, but basically this series is me just talking about something I'm very passionate about, hip-hop, and doing my best to dissect some certain points of discussion that I think really need to be talked about. Now, the first episode of Hip-Hop Hoopla is going to be going over the topic of living with a project. Now, what that means is basically whenever you get a new CD, or even if you just buy a project, whether it be an EP with 2 tracks or 7 tracks, or a full album with 14 tracks, or if you're crazy like Tech9, like a 30-track album, a lot of times what people do is they just go straight through the track list and listen to the entire album beginning to end, and then that's kind of it. After they go through that very first listen through of it, they pick out the songs that they really like, and maybe they listen to it 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 more times depending on if they really like the CD or not. But a lot of times in projects, there's always those 2 or 3 songs that you skip. And maybe you never even really listened to the whole song before. Maybe you skip to certain songs because there are certain features on them. I know that on my first listen through of The Storm by Tech9, I skipped the first track immediately because it had already been released, if I'm not mistaken, and I listened to Need Jesus, and then Sriracha was already released, so I skipped that track, and I just kind of went through and picked certain ones. One of my favorite tracks off that album is Buddha, and I think I skipped over the 2 previous tracks before that one to go and listen to that one because I was super excited that Tech had dropped a track with Boys to Men. Now, this is something that I don't think a lot of people should do, and again, this is just you listening to your own music, so I can't necessarily judge you for listening to music differently than I do, and I'll admit that, like I said just right now, even sometimes I skip certain songs and projects, and, you know, sometimes I don't really give the full project the appreciation that it deserves. And living with the project is basically allowing yourself to listen to the album beginning to end X amount of time so that you can really get a feel for it and really understand what it is and understand it as a whole and really get to know the album inside and out. Something a lot of people sleep on when it comes to albums and stuff like that is that the track list is extremely, extremely important. With me, I'm not going to say anything big right now, but with me coming out with my own debut project coming soon, I know what it's like to pick out that track list and meticulously decide exactly which song is supposed to go where and stuff like that. So a lot of times the order of the songs is a big part of why a project is so good. Another thing to look out for is features on projects, because I'll admit, like I just said earlier, sometimes I would skip to certain tracks because they had cool features on them. But what happens when you skip to certain features is that sometimes either that feature will be overhyped in your brain and now all the other songs will seem mediocre, or the opposite, you know, the first couple of tracks you heard off the album were really good, but then for some reason the feature wasn't really that good. But if you listen to the entire album beginning to end, it'll probably make a lot more sense as to where it is and how it fits, because sometimes rappers like to tell stories with their albums, or any artist for that matter, not just rappers. A very, very good example of this element is, and actually I have a couple CDs here that I wanted to show you guys, but the first one I want to show you guys is C-Mob's Masterpiece of Mine. I have a copy right here. It's actually really cool. I ordered this from him, and I'll show you guys right here real close. He actually signed it for me, and I didn't like request that or anything, or like order a special version. Maybe it was just like a lucky thing and he had certain amount of them signed and he just happened to give me this one, but it's really, really cool. Now, the really cool thing about that album is that it's really a story. If you listen to it beginning to end, it's a really cohesive piece of art. The album is called Masterpiece of Mind, and the intro skit opens up with the artist C-Mob painting in a room and trying to build a masterpiece. His son is asking him what he's doing and everything, and C-Mob says that he only has dark colors to paint with, so he's going to paint a dark picture. And then the album goes on to talk about a lot of the darker things in his life, what he's stressed about, you know, just laying his life out there on the track, which I really love it when artists do that, so huge ups to C-Mob for doing that. That was the first half of the album. Then there's a skit in the very center of the album, actually I think it's track number 10, Bright Paint. It's another skit on the album where C-Mob's son comes back into the room and says, I used some of my money to get some brighter paints for you. And then the rest of the album continues to talk about a lot more happier things. There's a song called Smile on there that I really recommend you check out. It's really, really good. But the thing about that project is that I listened to it beginning to end, and by the outro skit where C-Mob looks back at his painting and says, yeah, I think it really is a masterpiece. I think his son says it too. Wow, Dad, that really is a masterpiece. After hearing those words, and especially considering the fact that the album cover itself consists of those dark colors, and then it has the glare, but it has all those dark colors and then it has bright colors in it too. It's called Masterpiece of Mine and everything. It just came together to be a really beautiful piece of work. You know, the track list, the art, and especially the songs themselves are all really, really good. And this is an album that I listen to quite often. Now, a lot of albums aren't necessarily like this. They don't necessarily try and tell a story from beginning to end, but a lot of times the track list is something that people really sleep on. Now, living with the project is just, again, like I said, allowing yourself to really experience it X amount of times before you're really able to say anything. Now, one of my favorite YouTubers lately has been Video Game Donkey, and he is an extremely talented YouTuber. Seriously, check him out if you haven't already. But he has a video about video game critics, and in a small part of his video, he mentions how there was one reviewer who only played through half of each of the games in the Crash Bandicoot PS4 remaster before he put his review up, which makes absolutely no sense. You should experience an album or a game in its entirety before you really have a critique on it. Me personally, Hobson is my favorite rapper, and if Hobson sees this, he would probably be like so confused, but I actually haven't listened to No Shame all the way yet. I know, torches and pitchforks down, I know. I've listened to a lot of the singles he's released, and I did hear Hotel in Sydney, and I checked out the, it was a skit. It was, No Words too. I checked that out, but I haven't actually listened to the entire album beginning to end just yet. I've seen some of the music videos and heard a lot of the singles that he posted and everything, but I personally cannot give an opinion on that album as a whole without hearing all of it. When people listen to albums for the very first time, they pick out the 6 or 7 songs that are their favorites, and then they only listen to those. But sometimes it really takes time for you to build an appreciation for songs. A good example of this for me personally was Futuristic's recent EP called What More Could You Ask For? On my first playthrough of that, I honestly, really didn't like it. I didn't dislike it, and I always liked Grandma's song. That song has always really stuck with me. I really like that one. It's called Good Pain, featuring Truvon, and the beat for What More Could You Ask For, and I believe also for, God, I can't remember, All Love. All of those beats originally really threw me off, and it was really weird, and I really didn't like it, but I gave it some more time, and I listened to the project probably like this 5th or 6th time that I listened through it. It was at that moment that I really started finding an appreciation for those songs, and the message, I guess, took a long time to connect with me, but that's when the message of that album and the vibe of it was really with me, and I really felt it. I remember just a couple of days ago, I was blasting All Love in my headphones. You guys can go check that song out if you want. I'll probably leave links in the descriptions to the rappers I mentioned and stuff like that, you know, just so you guys can get a feel for what I'm actually listening to. Go check that song out, All Love by Futuristic, off of his What More Could You Ask For EP. I remember the other day I just took a quick walk to the liquor store near my house, bought some chocolate and stuff, and came back. And on the way back, that song came on, and I was just walking through the street like an idiot with my headphones on saying, L is for the way they used to laugh at me. And I just really felt that happy vibe that he had that I assume he had while he was recording that song, and that was really the point of that EP. I watched an interview that he did about that EP, and he kind of talked about how he wanted to inspire his people to kind of have that mindset. Like, what more could you ask for? You know, we're all in a generally good place, you know. May sleep on a floor, but I'm in a house, you know. My fridge may not be completely full, but it isn't empty or anything like that. God, that was a bad voice crack. But the point of all of this is to kind of, you know, make that project a stamp as, like, things aren't really so bad, and we should use an opportunity whenever we can to be as happy as we possibly can, because in Futuristic's belief, happiness is a choice. Now, that's a whole different debate. I'm not gonna go into that, and I don't want you guys to either, but you know, that was just the vibe he wanted to give off. And I think that's another thing about projects that a lot of listeners really neglect. You know, a lot of times when artists release projects, they have a purpose, like Futuristic did with his What More Could You Ask For EP. And especially his recent EP called Songs About Girls that was released on Valentine's Day, of course. You know, he kind of had specific directions for those projects. And especially when it comes to this C-Mob album right here, they each had a specific vision and a specific goal that they wanted to accomplish with their projects. And some projects aren't necessarily like that. I can't really say what the motives are of the artists, but you could definitely tell that in some projects, they really want to deliver a specific message, and with other projects, they just want to deliver a lot of good music. And there's nothing wrong with either of those things. And sometimes the opposite happens to me. Sometimes I'll start listening to a project, and over time, its effect will dwindle on me, and I'll listen to less and less songs. A personal example of this for me was Flawless Real Talk's Against It All EP. Again, I could listen to this EP all the way through and I absolutely love it. The title track, Against It All, Runner Up, I believe it's called Say You Love Me if I'm not mistaken, and Holding On, those are very, very good ones too. I listen to them quite often. But one song that I actually really don't listen to that much at all anymore is called Money in the Way. It just has a different kind of vibe for me. I feel like it didn't fit in that project specifically. When I listen to that project beginning to end nowadays, I usually skip over that one. And I've listened to it on the CD in the car like at least 20-30 times by now, so it's not like I haven't given it time to process. Again, that's not to say it's a bad song, but it's just, you know, sometimes when it comes to a project, you really have to give it that time, and then you could have a definitive verdict on it. A good example of an album that has not only had impact on me right when I first listened to it, but has continued to have impact and has continued to surprise me throughout its existence. A project that's a good example of that is Hopsin's Knock Madness. I'm gonna say something right now. When Ill Mind of Hopsin 5 came out, I think I watched it like a year after it came out, and that was the first piece of hip-hop that I ever really experienced. It was the first time I really listened to lyrics and really got into the song and was listening to the words and understanding the message behind it. And then it wasn't that long after that Hopsin released Knock Madness, and that was the first time that I ever got a physical CD copy of an album and I listened to it beginning to end. And that's what really made me start caring about music, and especially made me start really caring about hip-hop. So I am very biased towards this album, so you guys don't have to agree with me on this, but at least for me personally, those songs have lasted and lasted and lasted. Through the release of his other albums, I still go back to Knock Madness a lot. Pound Syndrome was very good, but I feel like Knock Madness just had that direction, and it was just very pure, uncut Hopsin. You know, Hip Hop Sinister showed that hip hop sinister. It showed that more evil side of him that just gets angry and says all these things. You know, I Need Help was one of those songs that showed his crazy, diverse flow, but then kind of showed a serious part of himself at the same time by expressing the fact that he has Marcus and he has Hopsin, and it's basically an identity crisis that goes on in his mind constantly. Another really good song on that project was Rip Your Heart Out with Tech 9. I heard that there was supposed to be a music video for that one, but it got scrapped because someone lost footage, or maybe like Tech couldn't make it or something. I don't know, but it was Hopsin and Tech 9, Rip Your Heart Out. If you have not listened to that song yet, please go listen to that song. It is amazing. Or go listen to the whole Knock Madness album. Lunchtime Cypher with Passionate MC and Gmo Ski, which actually, I have a Gmo Ski album right here. It was through that song that I discovered two more of my favorite rappers, which are Gmo Ski and Passionate MC, you know? So that album has a very special place in my heart, and that album has lasted with me, and that is an album that I could listen to beginning to end for the rest of my life, and I wouldn't have a single problem with it. So that's basically going to be it for this video, guys. Living with the project. So if there's anything you want to take away from this project, it's basically just that you should really live with the project. You know, give it 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 listens before you really deliver a final verdict on it, because listening to an album only once through and then just kind of delivering your verdict on it then, and then only listening to maybe 10 or 11 songs off of it and completely skipping over 4 or 5 of them, you know, if you do that, it's kind of like if you go through a video game, like I mentioned earlier, the whole, you know, the guy who only went halfway through each of the games before he put his review up, you know? You might have passed the game even, but you didn't fight the secret mini-boss, and you didn't do all the side quests, and you didn't get that extra collectible armor and everything, and you didn't do that secret story mode choice where you do get the girl or something like that. And, you know, I just feel like you should really give it time and give it patience and give it your whole attention and your whole heart, and really just allow yourself to be engulfed in the project and the art and what it is, and allow yourself to feel that music. Like Mordecai said in, I was about to say like Mordecai said in Family Guy. Like Mordecai said in regular show, you can't touch music, but music can touch you. It's cheesy, but it's actually true. So allow that music to touch you, not inappropriately though. You call the police if something serious goes down. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. So let me know if you guys want to see more hip-hop hoopla in the future. This was really fun to talk about hip-hop instead of video games for once. Not to say that I'm getting bored of doing the gaming stuff or anything like that, but it's just a nice change of pace, you know? I like keeping you guys on your toes. And if you're one of those people who only looks at my hip-hop stuff and doesn't like my gaming stuff, then maybe this is a chance for you to be a little bit more involved in the community and, you know, have a more fitting place on the channel and everything. Anyways, thank you guys all so much for watching. I really hope you all enjoyed. Make sure you guys hit the video up with a like if you did. I stuttered there. Make sure you guys leave your thoughts, comments, and suggestions in the comment section below. And make sure you guys subscribe to see the next episode of Hip-Hop Hoopla when it comes out. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, everybody!